Hello everyone, welcome to the workshop and another Sunday video. And in this video I want to show you how we took this plane from a complete and utter basket case of a plane. This is the one, this is the wooden smoother from the planes faults video, and we're going to show you how we took it from that to a usable completely usable plane. It's not a perfect plane yet, it does need work on the iron. I've only just roughly honed the iron just to get us a start to see if it would work. But yeah, so today's video is going to be taking a basket case of a plane and making it work. A few weeks ago we looked at faults with planes and common faults that you see. And one of the planes I pulled out was this lovely little coffin smoother here that was made by Bennett B. Burley, Glasgow. Obviously his 3B's trademark. Now, one of the things I said was it was heavily varnished, which is a no-no for me, really is a no-no for me. But it was also split up here. Now this has had an old repair and a pin. But one of the particular problems with this plane is, you see down here, the wedge is a little bit gappy in here. But the main thing is that it doesn't grab the iron at all. So even if we were to tap it in a bit, if we were to take a hammer, that's just about gripped now, but you've seen how hard I've had to drive the wedge in. So and the problem is that somebody has varnished this wedge right throughout, thinking they're doing the great favour to the plane, but they also put it back in slightly damp, or they put the iron in damp when it was being, this iron was painted gold. I stripped it in caustic soda to get rid of all that horrible gold paint. You just see the last sort of remnants of it. And then if we look down in here, they've also varnished down in here as well, which isn't ideal. So if I was going to clean this plane up, the first thing I'd do is I would put it in the vise like this. And I would take a card scraper, okay, because it looks like a card. Right. I've seen on the internet recently, oh, when did we stop calling them cabinet scrapers? Well, I was always taught that there was a card scraper. And that there was a cabinet scraper. Take your pick, doesn't matter, I'm not bothered what you call it. But for me, that's how I was taught. I've known these known as both card and cabinet scrapers, but these definitely are cabinet scrapers. See, I think my scraper's cutting. I'm not going to worry too much about the varnish down in these little dimples. Too much, because it's going to take too much to remove it. And I'm going to end up losing a lot of timber off the surface of the plane. I dare say this has been done with the best intentions of preserving the plane, or they thought it would sell better, or whatever, I don't know. But usually these planes come in mixed lots out of the auctions, and to be honest, normally they're struggling to sell them. So I only buy lots like this. When there's planes like this in them, I only buy them because there's something I want in the lot, or they're not making a lot of money. So the simple answer is, guys, just don't do it. I often find they've been heavily sanded too, and I always try and avoid sanding planes. I try and avoid sanding them because generally it damages the surface of them. And this is just a quick, right, let's see if this will work with a little bit of TLC, kind of restore, which I do a lot of. Because generally I find they'll work quite well with this kind of tart up, and kind of makes me disinclined to do much more than I need to do to make them work. Yeah, this is the kind of plane that I do it quickly during classes. I then give to students. For them to do what they will with. But the most important thing is to have a plane that works. Because the amount of people that come through the door here with tools that don't work is unbelievable. It is the most basic skill in any craft, is being able to maintain your tools. And I know there's certain tools that are not easy to do now. You know, anything with a carbide tip on, you know, it can be maintained in a small workshop, but it does generally seem to be easier to send them away. I know stonemasons who are using carbide nickers, and they're sending those carbide nickers away to be ground by the manufacturers on a fairly regular basis. But they are expensive tools. So best to have them done. Right, I'm not going to say that's all the varnish gone completely, but already that looks better. But unfortunately, this is going to look a very new plane, because a lot of the patina will go with this horrible varnish. Because with all these planes, the patina is years and years and years of use, of dust, of dirt. Where fingers being placed. Yeah, that plane's dirty. But if we were to just brush the dust off, you can see where somebody's thumb and somebody's finger, you know, where their thumbs have sat on these planes, and then on the other side where their fingers have sat here. And this is the sort of patina that I don't want to lose generally. But unfortunately, when things like this have happened, you're better to lose a bit of patina, but keep the tool good, than you are to completely lose the tool. Brief power cut. Well, I'm just looking at scraping out the inside of the frog now, because you see in here, they've literally gone over the old paint, they've gone over the rust, they've gone over everything. It's just real lumpy in there and horrible. So that does need cleaning out. So I'm swapping between a large cabinet scraper and one of these mini scrapers. So again, what I can get at with the big scraper. So I'm going to have to turn that round, guys, to make it just a bit more effective. Then when I can't get any more, I go in with the little scraper. This isn't as stiff, it's not as nice to use. It's not as quick to use either. And same with the back face, I'm just going to keep going. Getting what I can get for now. Because I'm probably going to have to come in here anyway in a minute with a chisel and clean up. Because I can't get in these cheeks either very easily. Maybe I can. have a look at the wedge quickly. Now this wedge has been doctored heavily, and I don't quite know what the logic was. Whether it's because this iron has got shorter over the time and they wanted to shove the wedge a lot deeper down in, I don't know. But it's not very good. I may see if I've got a thicker iron, the right width for this plane, because this iron is quite thick, but if I've got a slightly thicker iron, it'll help the wedge grip. And this is now these, not so much this face, but this face and this face you have to be really careful with, because obviously if you're losing thickness off here, then your wedge isn't going to be as tight as you want it to be. However, I do think in this kind of situation you're better to just lose a smidgen of timber but get rid of all the paint. And on this face it doesn't matter, because this is not a wedge surface, but this face here and this face here are definitely wedged surfaces. Now I'm just going to gingerly take off the rubbish off there. Get back in on this side because there's a little bit I've missed in the middle of there. I just want to clean up this corner. Same this side, just a spot there we've missed again. In the middle to bend the scraper. And use the curve bit to get into the hollow. And this will never now be the world's most prettiest plane, certainly not while I'm restoring it, it won't. But like I say, the whole idea is to have a workable plane once more. And this face here is quite important because this is what the chips are running up. So I want to make this smooth as possible. I certainly don't want these big lumps of gold paint and things that are in there at the minute. A little bit of a hollow just there. As you saw, I just changed the angle on my scraper. I got the worst of it. I'm not going to come in with a slightly smaller scraper. Okay, and come down this face here again with the smaller scraper. Again, because I just want to keep it clean. I want to smooth the flow. And you'll find after a few months of use, any residual paint that's remaining in this mouth will wear out of it anyway, because you've scraped the bulk of it. So any little residue will come with use. So it ain't going to win no beauty awards anyway, but it's beyond that regardless. But as we can say, you can already see it's starting to look better. A little bit more scraping on the body needed just to get rid of the last bits and pieces. Right. So what I'm going to do now, I've got a normal bench chisel. This is a Stanley, made in England one. But what I've done is I've just, obviously, this isn't an everyday working chisel of mine, as you can see by the bevel. What I've done, I've just taken my AccuBurr tool from a cabinet scraper and filed a burr on it. Or I've rounded a burr on it, I haven't filed a burr on it. I've pulled a burr on it with the AccuBurr, rolled a burr onto it. And they don't last quite as long as the cabinet scrapers for some reason. Whether because the steel is harder and it breaks the burr off easier, I don't know, but I never find a burr on a chisel lasts as long as it does on a carb scraper. So I've now scraped the worst out of the mouth. And it's got rid of that shiny surface at least. It's not perfect by any means, but it's got rid of the worst of it. I'm just going to have a quick blast over the body. I'm just checking to see if I'm cutting wood or if I'm cutting varnish still. And I think I am just about starting to cut wood there. So I've gone on to a slightly finer, thinner grade scraper. Easy on my fingers, I'm not trying to remove so much waste now. Now, a card scraper really is a tool you must master to be successful in joining, because it's just one of those tools that there is no equal to it. You know, when it comes to certain tasks, tricky timbers, finishing work, cleaning up work like this, there's just no equal to a scraper. If you can't manage this type of scraper, get yourself an 080 or a Stanley 80 like this. You won't regret it. But you know, learn how to. Paul Sellers does a good video on sharpening an 80, the blade for an 80, and how he sets one up. So trying to make sure I've got the last of this horrible varnish. I really dislike planes that have been varnished. They're just not nice in the hand. Right, how's that fitting there? See, we're still wedging in the sides. So the wedge is going tight in the sides and becoming difficult to pull out. There's no iron in that. So that's literally only going tight on the sides. And it's because all these sides are still gummed up with nastiness. So I'm going to find another slightly finer chisel than that, put a burr on it, and we'll do inside there. Okay, so I've done this smaller Marples chisel. You see the back on this isn't bad. This is one of the chisels I would use for my students normally. But it is ready for sharpening. It got a little nick in the front edge, so just put a burr in it for now. And I'll take that out when I hone it and sort it out. But do not, under any circumstance, underestimate how good a chisel with a burr on is for this sort of thing. You see there's a lot of stuff stuck in this side. That side's nearly clean now. It was just a bit more down that middle ridge actually. That side. Okay, so that's almost getting to the sole now before that goes mega tight on the sides. So all I would do now is I probably would just run a tiny bit of fine paper down in there and up this face, just down here really, just to get the worst of the lumps out in there and make sure it's smooth. Okay, so I've just given this iron a quick hone up. I've not touched the grind angle or anything. I've literally just honed it. Just to see where we're going with it. So that line is still trying to work loose in that body. That's why I just tried that short bit. Okay, so I'm trying to take too much of a cut, I think, is part of the problem. Just such a short piece. We'll back it off a bit. And now let's try it on a longer piece. Now we know roughly where we're at. A nicer bit than that there. No, that might be alright. It might be alright. So you see now, we've backed it off a bit, it's not touching anything. Now I would do a lot more fine tuning to that plane as I was using it. Just to see how we were getting on with it. But the most important thing is that's now making a shaving, and I can now fine tune that as I see fit. I would just oil the body now with a bit of linseed oil and put it away. Obviously I can't do that till I've tried it, but I would put a bit of linseed on it and I would forget about this plane now for a couple of weeks while that has time to soak in. And then I would fine tune the iron. The most important thing is that plane is taking a shaving again. You know, it wouldn't do that before because the iron kept backing out, you know, unless you slam the wedge down. And the problem was you're having to slam the wedge down to the point it's splitting the body as somebody's done here. It is at least now at the stage where this plane is taking a cut and making a shaving. So I would just very quickly strip it down and give it a wipe over now with some oil. So I've got some linseed oil and turpentine mixed in the tub, and I'm literally just going to check the things like this wedge to make sure I've got the last of the varnish off. very quickly knock the last of any bits that I've missed off. And I'm going to chuck that now, whole plate in there for a second. And then I've got a piece of 4A wire wool. And the 4A wire wool is just going to denib any raised grain. And some people say that linseed oil darkens timber and what have you. Yeah, maybe it does. I'm not so worried about that. Traditionally, it was what was used for these planes. I've got about 25% terps with some good quality raw oil in it. And I am doing the sole for now. I probably wouldn't do the sole subsequently. And we'll flip that over in there. Do the other side, and then we'll take it out, and I'm just going to do exactly the same. And what I would tend to do is where the wedges are damaged like there, I just let them stand and let them soak up a bit of oil for 10 minutes. I just literally stand that in there. Okay, and that's literally all I'm going to do with that. What I would rather have though, clean my hands. What I would rather have to restore is a plane like this. So again, it's another plane out of a mixed lot. And I'd much rather they look like this when they came to me than like that did. Than the one that's been restored. There's no visible maker's mark, but what I would do with this one is I'd take my wet piece of wire wool, and anywhere you've got heavy dirt build up like there, I just go a bit heavier with the wire wool. And sometimes you have to do just take a scraper to these patches where you've got the white paint. No, I'm not even taking the iron out of this plane yet. And then I take this paper towel. And I do tend to use paper towel with linseed oil because they get chucked in the log burner, or they get removed from the soffit anyway. Tend to land flat. And I'm just wiping off the dust, and that'll leave the old patina in place, and I always just have to scrape what's left of that white paint off now. But I'd much rather start with a plane like that because that's done. That's good enough for me. Okay, we've got a bit more to do inside, but that's because the iron and the chip breaker are not set properly. But yeah, much better, much nicer. That would be a much nicer plane to do than this one was when it started. So now you see it's starting to dry out the surface. I'm just going to give that a wipe as well. And I would put subsequent coats on a dry old plane like this that the timber's come to the surface of. For the first time in many years, I would actually put multiple coats on over the next 2 or 3 days. for the purposes of today's demonstration, I'm going to put it back together. There you have it, guys. One usable, functional plane once more. And actually not a bad looking plane. It would be nice if it had the patina that this one's got. But it hasn't, so. And thank you all for supporting the channel, etc. I'm not going to give away too many secrets, but if you do want to know more about plane restoration, I do run a weekend plane restoration course, and you'll take a plane like this one was to start with, an absolute basket case, and you'll leave with that plane at the end. It's fairly, at £150 for the weekend, it's a fairly cost-effective course, and I'll give you lunch in that as well. But you'll go from an absolute basket case of a plane like this was to a completely usable plane. Now, some of them are little smoothers like this. I also have jacks that we use for that particular course. So you'll take a plane and you'll do all the steps in tuning that plane up. Now, this has just been a quick let's see if it'll work video, but you'll learn a lot more in depth about that particular plane and how to set it up and how it works. You know, we'll look at grinding, we'll look at sharpening, we'll look at bevel angles, we'll look at how to tune lever caps and that sort of, cap irons and that sort of thing. Yeah, and minor repairs and things like that. So if you're interested in that course, then drop me an email to whitakerbespoke@gmail.com. I'm not going to set any course dates for next year as such. So if you would like to do a course like that, let me know and I will form a waiting list. I would need 5 students to make the plane restoration course viable. It costs me a lot of money to have visitors to the workshop, but I'd be looking for either before or, you know, so November, December, or post Christmas, so January or February. If anybody's interested, then let me know. And it will be the same with next year with the window restoration courses. Things are quite busy here at the minute, and just finding time to set up courses and setting dates and keeping dates aside is hard work at the minute. So as soon as I've got 4 candidates or 5 candidates for a window restoration course, be that the 5-day window repair course or be that the 10-day window restoration course, let me know. The restoration course will be the window repair course plus then an extra week of amazing things. So we're actually going to rebuild a Victorian bay as part of that 10-day restoration course. There's enough surviving of said bay, so all the original sash lights survive, and there's enough of a box, and I've got enough evidence of sills that we could rebuild that bay here, and that will be 10, possibly 11 days. It might even be 12 days. There may be 2 Saturdays included, depending on what we need to do to get done. So yeah, if there's enough interest, I'll set dates for those and take bookings on those. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you on the next video. Bye.